It is always a joyous thing to be on the right side of history, and it is always a good thing to defy expectations. I am speaking, of course, about Saturday's No Kings rally, march, protest. We know why we were there. More than 7 million Americans in almost 3,000 locations got out, stood up, and with one voice said, "This is America. This is a democracy. We refuse to capitulate to a petty tyrant who wants to undo 250 years of a constitutional order." But this wasn't just about Donald. In fact, it wasn't really about him at all. And that's probably why it drove him so crazy. But let's get back to the expectations we defined on Saturday. Because the right is so terrified of the righteousness of our cause, they had to mislead Donald's followers into believing that the people showing up to protest against kings, by the way, which is as American a thing as you can do, were, and these are direct quotes from people like Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, Press Secretary what's her name, Caroline Leavitt, and Donald himself. Oh, and also, of course, Baby JD Vance. The people showing up and speaking out on Saturday were not Americans. No, we were pro-Hamas terrorists. We were America haters. We were violent criminals and undocumented workers. We were, in their minds, illegitimate, and their goal was to convince anybody who will listen to them, believe it too. I think we should be used to it by now, being called names by the other side, names that they can't even define. We are socialists, communists, Marxists, Leninists, Maoists, what have you. They claim we're all of those things at once, which is a meaningless designation. But it is very different to paint us with a broad ideological brush because the people they're talking to don't know what socialism or communism or Leninism or Maoism or Marxism is, right? They're just scare words, and the base has been triggered. Indeed, they have this Pavlovian response to those words to know, okay, we know now that we're supposed to hate those people. It is a very, very different thing to call us terrorists, to call us American hating, violent criminals, because that is clear. Those terms everybody knows how to define. If we are America hating terrorists, what does the Republican base believe of us? Well, they believe that we are trying to destroy their country and their way of life. That puts a target on our backs, because if you believe that somebody is really coming for your rights, your children, your country, that puts those people outside of the bounds of human protection. And this has been one of the most frustrating ironies of this time in which we live. So much of what they say about us is true of them. The difference is we are not coming after them. We are trying to protect our country, and in the process of that, trying to protect them. They just want people like us gone. So, how do you, though, argue that the 7 million peaceful protesters who showed up yesterday with joy and enthusiasm and passion for the American experiment are scary? Well, you can't, can you? So, what's the solution to that problem? Well, you still call us illegitimate. You mock us by saying that, oh, the protesters were weak. Practically nobody showed up. The people who protested were not representative of America because they weren't rich, white, straight Christian men across the board. And then you pivot and you go from saying, I'm not a king, to, well, You're telling me I can't be a king? Guess what? I'm going to become one, whether you like it or not, especially because you don't like it. So we get Donald reposting AI generated videos on his failing social media site of him dressed up as a fighter pilot, which is another grotesque act of cosplaying, wearing a little crown as he flies a fighter jet, wearing his oxygen mask the wrong way. And then, as he flies over peaceful protesters in American cities and towns across the country he's supposed to be leading, and he dumps tons of feces on his fellow American citizens, some of whom I'm guessing actually voted for him at least once. That's who he is. That's what people still support. And then, just to drive the point home, we see another video posted in which we see campaign signs that say, Donald 2028. He's not allowed to run again. Donald 2032, 2036, 2040, 2044, 2048, 2052, and on and on and on. These people are not setting him up to be a dictator for life. They are setting him up to be a dictator in perpetuity. The last date on that campaign sign was something like the year 4000 CE. Pretty sure he's not going to live that long. But that isn't the point either. The point is there are no guardrails here. There are no limits. I've said it before. I will continue saying it as it continues to be true with Donald, but not just with him, with all of these people in the fascist, corrupt Republican Party. And that includes the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court. There is no such thing as worst. There is only worse. And every day we see more and more evidence of just that. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is wonderful to have you here. It is great to be back. Thank you so much for tuning in last week, even though I was out. And thank you so much to my friends and fellow Nerd Avengers, the most excellent Waj, Brown, Mary Ali, Brian Karam, and Tara Setmeyer for just knocking it out of the park. And thanks to all of you for showing up and supporting them. It meant a lot to us. What a weekend. Yeah, I, of course, was on a plane during the marches, but my city showed up and showed up big. New York probably had the biggest protest in the world yesterday. And according to local law enforcement, which quite frankly is the only law enforcement I trust at this point, with certain caveats here, there was not one arrest. So again, to those Republicans who would have you believe that we were out for blood, that we were protesting to create violence and wreak havoc. No. We are here to protect our country and our fellow citizens because that is who we are. All right. So speaking of the opposite, a guy who likes to refer to himself as law and order person, Donald, continues to mock our legal system. And he continues, even if it doesn't ostensibly seem to benefit him, he continues to help convicted criminals. This does not bode well for a reason I'll get to in a second. On Friday, Donald commuted the sentence of disgraced New York Congressman George Santos. And if you don't remember who he is, you're about to be reminded and about to be sickened. Here's ABC News with more on this latest abuse of Donald's pardon power.
Breaking news we learned just moments ago. President Trump has commuted the prison sentence of former New York Congressman George Santos.
George Santos was sentenced to 7 years after he pleaded guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. The former congressman admitting he lied to Congress and defrauded donors. Now, during his brief political career, Santos was caught lying about where he went to college, his previous employment, and his charity endeavors. He even claimed his mother died in 9/11 and that his grandparents were Holocaust survivors.
That is a person worthy of having his sentence commuted, is he? Well, I think the message, and again, not surprising because Donald is a weak, tiny man. As long as you can show him in some way that you support him, no matter what, your loyalty will be rewarded. If you stand up against me, if you disagree with me, even if you just don't vote for me, I'll punish you. That's his entire credo right there. I am not kidding. You could be, in his mind, his greatest enemy, but if you turn around and kiss his ass and bend the knee and capitulate, all will be forgiven. I mean, don't get me wrong. You will end up getting punished somehow in the end, if only by demonstrating your entire lack of human decency and strength of character. But it doesn't ever end well for anybody, except in this case, yeah, Santos has basically gotten out of spending, what, I think 7 years in prison. Why does this not bode well? Guess who else wants a pardon? Somebody infinitely worse than the likes of George Santos, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, a woman who was indicted, tried, and convicted on counts of trafficking, sex trafficking of girls and young women, and sentenced to 20 years in prison. She wants a pardon, and when Donald was asked about it, he didn't know. You'd have to look into it. Well, Donald, she's convicted. She's a convicted sex trafficker of girls and young women. I don't know. I have to ask. Donald is also using the government shutdown as an excuse to lash out against federal workers and blue state voters. In a recent interview with Fox's Maria Bartiromo, Donald said the quiet part out loud, which is something we need to get used to. That is just the way it is now. It is okay to be openly racist, homophobic, immigrant hating, Islamophobic, misogynistic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and pro sex trafficking. Donald admitted openly that he is cutting a $16 billion New York train tunnel project to punish Democrats. Take a look at this clip.
What we're doing is we're cutting Democrat programs that we didn't want because, they made one mistake. They didn't realize that gives me the right to cut programs that Republicans never wanted, giveaways, welfare programs, et cetera. And we're doing that, and we're cutting them permanently. We're cutting a $20 billion project that Schumer fought for 15 years to get, and I'm cutting the project. The project is going to be dead. It's pretty much dead right now.
Oh, what a tough guy. Yeah, that'll show you, Chuck Schumer. First of all, this is probably illegal. And is Schumer really the person who's going to pay the price here? No. Who's going to pay the price? According to Secret NYC, quote, the $16 billion undertaking will affect 200,000 daily travelers and create 100,000 jobs in the process. That is the project Donald Trump is going to cancel out of petty vengeance. 200,000 daily travelers and 100,000 jobs created in the process. A massive investment in New York City infrastructure and the people in this city. Donald can pretend all he wants that this is about punishing Chuck Schumer, but no, he is so much worse and pettier than that. This is about punishing a city that rejects him wholesale. We know who this man is. We have always known, for decades we have known, what a pathetic loser he is, what an unaccomplished trust fund baby he is, what a daddy's boy he is. 90% of people in Manhattan voted against him. He knows that. He knows we hate him. So he's not punishing Chuck Schumer. He's punishing everyday New Yorkers who desperately need this investment in infrastructure. This will create a subway line that goes much farther north up the east side of Manhattan, which is something we have needed for decades. The prospect of this has actually helped increase property values. The canceling of this project will destroy wealth. It will erase 100,000 jobs and negatively impact over 200,000 people in his city. That's who this person is. And he is not just going to stop there. He will do this in any blue city that has hurt his fragile little ego. Meanwhile, NPR reports that the Trump regime has said it will proceed with government layoffs despite a temporary restraining order blocking them. NPR's Andrea Hsu and Stephen Fowler say, quote, the administration made clear it believes most of the employees who have already received layoff notices or expected to in the near future are not covered by the court order, which only applies to programs or offices where the union plaintiffs have members or bargaining units, unquote. Meanwhile, the U.S. district judge in this case, Susan Ilston, has said she thinks the federal layoff should be 100% stopped while the order is in effect. What's the over-under on whether or not Donald and his regime comply with that order? I'm guessing it's pretty low. And I'm sorry to repeat myself, but this is the problem. When fixing problems or stopping them is left up to the judiciary, well, it's not always very effective because the damage is done and then the court takes its time to render a decision. And in the meantime, more damage is done. And then even when the court renders a decision, there's an appeal. And that takes time because justice grinds slow but fine. And then what? We have to wait to see if the Trump regime is going to comply with a legal judicial order or continue its incursions, continue its illegal and unconstitutional activity, and they will appeal again. And the incursions will continue. And our country will continue to be degraded. And then what's the backstop to all of this? Yeah, the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court, which is gunning for the Voting Rights Act, marriage equality, LGBTQ plus rights, anything that gets in the way with creating the imperial presidency John Roberts so desperately wants for some reason. So that's all the more reason. What happened on Saturday was not just important, but monumental. This wasn't just a countrywide protest against the Trump regime. It was a cri de coeur. It was a call to action. It was drawing a line in a sand that needed to be drawn. This far and no further. We cannot allow this anymore. So yes, it was indeed a message to the Trump regime, which, in keeping with the maturity of its leader, stuck its fingers in its ear and hummed loudly to block it all out. This was also a very clear message sent to the Democratic Party and anybody who's in any kind of position at all to do something. Millions of Americans turned out to stand up to fascism, the illegal takeovers of our cities, the horrors and the cruelty of ICE, and the degradation of our constitutional order. Yesterday, I asked some of you, or actually I asked anybody who was watching the show last night, and I also asked people on my Substack to share pictures from their local rallies. I mean, some of them were rallies, some of them were marches, all protests. So I want to take a look at some of the incredible signs we saw Phoebe W. sent us some photos from the No Kings rally in Rochester Road near Big Beaver outside Troy, Michigan. Love the Time Magazine one. Deer tick, dog tick, lunatic. That's cool. No kings, no fears, no clowns, no thanks. That's Donald as Mussolini. Morons are governing America. They are. That's MAGA. That's what MAGA stands for, by the way. Reminder, the Holocaust didn't start with the death camps. It started with a dictator threatening to deport millions of people, and nobody listened. That's right. Sometimes you got to flush twice. Well, you know how obsessed he is with water pressure. They're eating the checks. They're eating the balances. Wow. Indeed. Aw, the cat's cute. Dear world, we're really sorry. Sincerely, most Americans, says a crying Statue of Liberty. Not statute. Statue. Unpaid protesters with arrows pointed at every single person there. All right. Phoebe writes, very peaceful. Tell Donald and the world, no guards needed here, unquote. And again, that was indeed the mood. There was no violence. And as I said, like one of the most brilliant things about it, it wasn't about Donald. It was about who we are and what kind of country we want to live in. We want to keep living in the kind of country we've always lived in, except better. We know we need to make things better. The only way to do that is to hang on to the shreds of whatever's left of our democracy. These protests are reflecting real change. In fact, Donald's approval rating is down to 37%, and it's getting lower by the week. Take a look at MSNBC's coverage.
Trump's approval rating, if we can pull these up quickly, is diminishing. It's according to an AP NORC poll, October 9th to 13th, 37% approve, 61% disapprove. Another approval rating, when you break it down by party, 93% of Democrats disapproved, and only 22% of Republicans disapprove.
Yeah.
7% of Democrats approve of this shit? Come on, guys. Wake up. Seriously, wake up. Here's the thing, though. About 7 million people showed up. It may well be more. But a couple of important data points. That's 2 million more than showed up in June for the last No Kings. So that's good, right? That's incremental and important. And it's about 2.1% of the entire population of the United States of America. There's something called the 3.5 rule. And it's a rule. It's not a hard and fast provable law. But if you can get 3.5% of a population out in the streets doing what we did on Saturday, you can affect real change. So, did Saturday matter in and of itself? Absolutely, it did. But if we don't keep doing it, it will have been for naught. We need to build on that momentum. We need to go from, just as we went from 5 million to 7 million, we need to go from 7 million to 10 million, and from 10 million to 15 million and on. And then, and I continue to believe this is going to be necessary, as Donald is literally taking a wrecking ball to the facade of the East Wing of the White House, as he is fantasizing about dropping loads of shit on the American people, we are going to need to shut it all down. Which means we deserve an emotional support moment. Because once again, the weekend didn't really feel like a weekend. I think is it Monday? Wow. Is it Monday? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think for most of the day, I thought it was Tuesday. Please, somebody in the chat, help me out here. It's a little embarrassing. I should know what day it is at the very least. Pretty sure it's Monday. And thankfully, whether it's Monday or not, we have reached our emotional support moment. And as the sun goes down on what was, quite frankly, a beautiful, blustery autumn day here in New York, I thought we should take in some ocean waves on a beautiful beach at sunset. So Let's celebrate the golden hour and have a relaxing moment to soak this in. I forgot to tell us all to breathe, but watching that made me do it sort of automatically. Yeah, that sound. That sound. All right, let us get to your questions, comments, etc. Kicking us off, Midas Cheryl. Thank you as always, Midas Cheryl, for gifting 1 Mary Trump Media membership. Jimmy, as always, I don't even know what to say except thank you so much as always for being so incredibly generous to us. Comment, rainy days and Mondays, the carpenter. It's Monday. Thank you, Jimmy. Who also says thank you, Mary and team. Well, thank you. Seriously. And honestly, if you can handle it, it's a little there's a documentary about Karen Carpenter that came out recently. And it is such an extraordinary testament, to what she went through. I still find this mind blowing because I grew up on their music. And I don't remember precisely what year she died. But I believe she was 32. Which is just cruel beyond comprehension. She died. I was still a teenager, I think, and she had very serious eating disorders, and a very difficult, not supportive family, despite her extraordinary talent. But the point of the documentary is there are so many people who were interviewed who talk about what an influence she was on them. And this is the thing I remember about her. Like I always found her very compelling and cool. She has truly one of the purest, most beautiful voices ever. And seeing these other, very talented and successful people in their own right talk about her in the way they do, it'll make you feel better in some ways, while it's also tragic and heartbreaking. But I recommend it, honestly, and she deserves those honors. So Jimmy, thank you for reminding me of that. John is a super sticker. Thank you so very much, John. Night Owl Ohio, thank you very much. Comment, swear jar fee. Yeah, because this is fucking ridiculous. Yeah, I need to come up with the new swear words. Fuck doesn't seem strong enough anymore. That vile AI vid is beyond words. It's so embarrassing. Yeah, but here's the thing, Night Owl Ohio. It's embarrassing and humiliating and disgraceful to him and anybody who supports him. not to us. And I think we need one of the reasons Saturday was so important is because we need to make a very clear distinction between us and him and them. And the world needs to know who is standing up against him and them. Right? But I agree with you. It is fucking infuriating, and that's not strong enough. I don't know what other words there are. Like, the only words stronger than that are words I won't use. So, oh well, we'll figure it out. Suki56, thank you as always. Comment, welcome back, Mary, but Donald is letting all these people out of jail. Sir shits a lot, just saying. Yeah, he is. He is. I mean, and that's the thing we have to remember. He's not doing all of this on his own. He's not. People are telling him what to do. People are telling him, "Oh yeah, post that video. Oh yeah, pardon that person." I mean, yeah, sometimes like some of the worst of it, like well, he probably posted the AI video on his own because that's sort of the level of maturity we're dealing with right here. But he doesn't know what he can and cannot do. So he's always going to push the envelope. And the thing is, there's nobody pushing back on him. He has no right, none, to destroy the White House. What's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't own the White House. We do. He's living there as a tenant, rent-free, on our dime. He's not allowed to do what he just did. Who is allowing it? Sorry. So, I mean, again, this is why we need to remember, as despicable and stupid and corrupt and grotesque as Donald is, he has so much help. And we need to think about why people are helping him. Lady Diane V, member for 4 months, member for life, member forever. Thank you so much for that. That's great. I must hydrate. Kendra is a super sticker. Thank you, Kendra, as always. Oh, I know what. Sorry, I had to reset something. There we go. Richard, thank you so very much for that comment. I was able to face my fear, grab a bullhorn, and read the declaration of my local protest. It was like reading a script. Our forefathers fought a dictator before they won. We will win this fight too. Richard, I am so grateful that you did that. That is fantastic. I know a lot of people on Saturday got out of the side of their comfort zones and went to their local protests, and you should all be so proud of yourselves because I'm telling you, it matters. Lady Diane V again. I'm assuming that's Nevada, but I don't want to make assumptions, even though I just did. It's late, and apparently it's still Monday. Anyway, thank you so much for that. The comment is, thanks for helping to keep our wits about us. Well, apparently I'm not doing a very good job of keeping my wits about me. But if I'm helping you keep your wits about you, all the better. Trollgoat is a member for 1 month. Thank you so much. Very cool. Lori, thank you so much for that comment. Mary, I'm so pissed. Donald is ripping down the East Wing of the White House. Yeah. But again, who's letting him? Why is that okay? I mean, it's literally as if I went to the Statue of Liberty and hacked off the torch just because I live in New York. Like, what? I'm an American citizen. That belongs to me. Just incredible. Well, actually, the difference is I'd be sent to a penitentiary for the rest of my life, and Donald, gets to be dictator for life. Or sorry, in perpetuity, because clearly he's immortal. Jane, thank you very much for that, Jane. Comment, I was at 3 protest marches in Chicago. Lots of people carried flags, and one of them was Canadian. Shout out to the Canadian for joining the march. Elbows up, Canada. You guys rock. I know you always have our backs, and we will always have yours. So thank you. In the middle of nowhere, member for 5 months, rock on. comment, happy I found your podcast. Being part of this community is keeping me sane, as I am a blue dot in the very red middle of nowhere. Yeah, I honestly, I can't imagine. I've never been in a red anything. I've lived in New York and Massachusetts. So, you know, I'm spoiled. So I think it's even more impressive that you guys are fighting the good fight. Anyway, continuing. My No Kings protest was bigger than expected and it gave me hope. Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing about this. There were No Kings protests in the tiniest towns in very red places. Because again, this is not about politics. This is about rejecting what this country has been fighting against forever since its founding. So, yeah. So here is to all of the tiny blue dots in very red seas. Jane, comment. I was at the protest march in Chicago. There were lots of protesters with flags. Did I just do that already? I did. My apologies. Not sure, but cool. Again, Canada. Woo. Joe, thank you as always. Question, how do we shut it down when he has a GOP letting him do what he's doing to protect themselves from Epstein? Well, we stop. I mean, I don't think this is going to happen tomorrow. We need to grow the protests, keep growing the protests. And then we need to, those of us who can, stop going to work, stop buying things at big box stores, stop paying taxes, all of it. But it has to be coordinated. And it has to be as many people as possible. So they can't come after all of us. That's it. We stop participating in the corrupt system. That's why we need to look to blue state governors, and blue state governors really, really, really need to start exercising their not inconsiderable power. Anita Oakley, super sticker. Thank you so very much for that. Cool. Terry, thank you very much. Comment, Mary, it's nice to have you back. I hate this era. It is great to be back, honestly. And don't get me wrong, I had 5 days off for the first time in about 5 years. So that was cool. But I miss being here, so it's very good to be back. And yes, this era is a kick in the teeth, as they say. So we just need to dig in and get through it. Scott is a super sticker. Thank you so very much, Scott. Zella, thank you as always. Comment, most Republicans are not real Republican. They're not a legitimate party. Let them know. We know who and what they are. Trumplicans. Yeah, well, and fascists. I honestly don't begin to understand how anybody, even people who oppose Donald, can consider themselves Republicans anymore. I just don't get it. Pam, thank you very much, Pam. Comment, we had a great, lively protest in Raleigh, North Carolina, along Capitol Boulevard. Shouldn't we count the thousands of people in their cars, honking, cheering, with passengers holding up their signs? Yeah, I think we should. Because remember, not everybody has the luxury of taking a day off. And, sometimes like the best you can do is drive by and show your support by honking your horn. I mean, I remember like there have been plenty of times I've passed by picket lines. And, I don't belong to the organization, so I can't join the picket line, but I honk my horn in solidarity. So, yeah, I think that matters a lot. The question is how. I don't know how people count these things, quite honestly, but I think it was definitely more than 7 million, for sure. But that's a really good point. Thank you. Jimmy, my word. Thank you. That is inadequate. But thank you. The comment, yes, Starving for Perfection. That is the documentary I was talking about that came out recently. I think in the last year, maybe 2, but last year or 2, certainly, about Karen Carpenter, her struggles, and the massive impact she had on so many people. From Jimmy again, beautiful documentary from ARS Pictures. She died on February 4th, 1983. Yeah, so I was still a teenager. And learning about her death how young she was, because, when you're a teenager, somebody who's 32 seems ancient, right? But still, even I knew that was way too young, and she was still at the height of her powers. Um, and learning how she died, it was a lot to handle. So thank you for that, Jimmy, and for everything you do for us. And finally, Lissa, thank you very, very much. Comment, I hope those ballroom contractors know they're not going to get paid. Oh, well. Oh, well. Anybody at this point who is misinformed enough to do work for that blackguard without getting paid up front, we've known about this since the 1970s. Serves you right. That's all. Okay, everybody. That does it for us. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody watching on YouTube, streaming on Twitter, and our Substack, The Good in Us, everybody listening to the podcast, to all of our new members, everybody gifting memberships, all of our super stickers, and all of you giving us donations. We so appreciate you. You have no idea. And of course, to our most excellent and compassionate moderators, thank you for everything you do. We know, trust me, that it is not easy. And finally, not finally, I have one more thing to say. We are really trying rather desperately to get to 500,000 subscribers. It's taking a little longer than we wanted it to. We're not entirely sure why. But if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. It doesn't cost anything. And once you subscribe, please click on the bell icon, because that way you can just, if you click all, you will be alerted every time a new video drops. If you don't click all, YouTube is going to make decisions for you, and we don't want that ever. No, don't trust the algorithm. So click on the bell icon, click all. Another really easy way to help us out is to watch our other videos. In addition to the lives, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, we have pre-recorded videos every single day. And if you're not getting alerted to them, then make sure you check why. Check to see if you clicked on that bell icon, because you should get alerted. Typically, they drop at 2 and 4. It's very, very, very helpful to us if you watch them, share them, like them, and comment on them. And I think you'll like them. Like, legitimately, not just like them as in click on the heart, but I think you will enjoy them and get something out of them. That's the goal. Finally, to my brilliant team who just continues to blow me out of the water. Thank you for doing what you do. I promise you we're getting there. We're getting there. And thanks for hanging in. That does it for us. Thank you again, everybody, for being here tonight. I will see you tomorrow, which I believe is Tuesday, at 6 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, please, everybody, stay safe and be kind.